Hey folks, this is the most overpowered build in Borderlands 4. That is absurd. The newest weapon that was included in the bounty pack 2, the Specializations, is crazy as you see here because it's got so many ricochets, and the best part about it is if we pair this with a torgue weapon, those ricochets will explode and destroy vile crystals, so this is good against every single boss in this game. Now this gets even crazier when you throw in the shotgun attachment on this weapon, because then you're shooting at multiple projectiles that are going to ricochet multiple times. And here's the weapon here in the rolls that I got, the Torgue impact magazines, not stickies, just impacts, meaning they explode with the dataless shotgun, and it's a Jacob's weapon. Where this becomes crazy is if we use an enhancement that increases the Torgue license explosion radius, the additional projectiles that we get off this will actually hit the target multiple times, and we get additional ricochets if we don't manually reload. So you just don't reload and spam this gun. And the best part is that we also will get our kill skills activated pretty quickly with this, because with this particular setup, we're going to activate them on critical hits, and it oddly enough makes it so that we get a multitude of critical hits off of that, which triggers all of our abilities really fast. So you see right beside my head there, we have multiple of them. And with this build will mostly be in the green skill tree. I'm going to take you through all of it because there's some actually interesting choices that we can make here due to how this weapon triggers things like our Mortal Terror to activate our kill skills on crits, because again, multiple projectiles that are multiply chaining around can do some pretty silly stuff. But right from the start of the game, if you're starting off, I'd actually think that the leeching attunement is a little bit better, giving us lifesteal, and this weapon is kinetic, so you can actually use this later on, although I do find that getting grave sights ends up being a lot better, giving us increased critical hit damage, and we want those crits. This could be good in the early game, so we're going to go with 5 points into that. Now, I do like the grave implements giving us increased gun damage, but this also can work very well with bloodletter. Bleed will actually stack up very quickly with this, and it's based on gun critical hits, and we're hitting multiple projectiles. It becomes pretty absurd, but we're going to first go with the grave implements because this is 20% extra gun damage every kill that we get, 3 stacks for 60% extra gun damage, which becomes even crazier when we use 3 stacks of grave power. So that becomes 120%, more than doubling our gun damage. Is really nice in the early game. Now, target prescience here can give us critical hit chance against any part of enemies, so if we don't hit crit headshots, we can still get it. You can take points into this, but since we're also using like a kinetic-based weapon, more points into bloodletter works really well here. This then takes us on to our next one, and I would actually recommend coming over here and going on the right-hand skill tree. Both middle and the right are really good, but the Ars Arcana here is actually going to impact a few different things that we have here. So skill damage is a little different from action skill damage, meaning it's going to impact our action skill like Incarnate here in the Eldritch Blast, but skills also apply to bleed. So this just gave bleed a 45% increase in its damage, which is amazing. And that can also apply to Bloodshot. Now, I'm working on another Bloodshot build here for Vex because there's a couple snipers that have released that are really nice, but for this one, we're just going to stick and go down to the right side here for Essence Leech. This gives us lifesteal, which is honestly amazing because of Vex's crazy amounts of survivability. And when our action skill is active, it becomes 20%, and then we're going to turn that into actual damage. And this is bonus kinetic damage. Now, this is good because bonus damage takes our increases from grave implements, so if we get that 120% bonus gun damage or extra gun damage, it's actually applied to this, and this takes 300% of our lifesteal. So we do get some pretty crazy numbers going all around because it's impacting our lifesteal, which is impacting our blood is power. So yeah, the damage from this is quite nice. This also lets us take Heart Piercer as our capstone. Now, our capstones are either going to be Heart Piercer here, which will sacrifice our health. We can spam this one a little bit more, but you just have to be mindful of your overall health. Or going with Vibe Check. This is good against Bloom Reaper the Invincible because it's going to chain it around, and when we deal gun damage, we actually reduce the cooldown, and this gun actually triggers the cooldown really quickly. So either of these work. I like Heart Piercer for the reliability, but that's for our capstones. Our augment is going to be Witchy Trigger Finger. This is just one of the best. It increases our gun damage, but it gives us infinite ammo. This is really nice because you can throw your Eldritch Blast and it just gives you some more bullets to shoot. It doesn't work amazing with the Shalashaska, so you could alternatively go with something like the Geist Wave or the Energy Vampire if you prefer, but I still think this ends up being the best because it's still going to give you a gun damage increase. So in most cases, this is nice. You do need to hit the Eldritch Blast for your ammo to reload, but pairing it with Heart Piercer basically gives you infinite ammo on a lot of weapons. This then takes us to our next point. Drink Full is really nice, giving us increased fire rate, which is nice, although it doesn't fully apply to this weapon, so you could go with Keen Mind to give yourself critical hit chance on your skills. I still think for the most part, it's probably better to take increased gun damage or fire rate from our gun damage, and then we can use other types of weapons as well. We're not just stuck using this one weapon, especially most people get bored just using a single weapon, so it's nice to switch things up. I then would highly recommend taking Mortal Terror. This is probably the best skill tree here because it activates so much off of this weapon. We basically get a chance to activate our kill skills when we critically hit an enemy, and this activates a lot more frequently using this weapon, like more than 5 times more likely. It stacks up very quickly, as you saw. And fights don't even last that long for us to get maximum benefits from it, but it's really nice because this is going to give us the gun damage increases just by shooting. We don't have to take out enemies, we're just going to blast away. This then takes us to the other capstone, which I mentioned you could potentially take. Strike Me Down can be nice. This gives us basically a free revive, and it does a huge explosion. This is good against Bloom Reaper too, because you can just trigger this to explode the crystals. But at this point, we have 10 points or 11 points left. I do like coming over into this side here and getting the increased gun damage the more full our shield is, but I do think on this particular build, Bloodletter ends up being a good one to fully max out here because bleed applies to our gun crits, and we're aiming for those. And we can trigger bleed quite frequently with this. I do like the attunement here. This is going to give us increased lifesteal and reload speed, which is okay because we do need to reload this gun kind of a bit. I also like the material components here, and I do want to quickly mention that the enchantment here is also very nice, which will give us bonus kinetic damage when our action skill is active. Only when it's active, and the bonus damage, again, we'll take those increases from grave implements. I do think that if we go with this weapon in particular, that taking material components is nice, because this is going to increase our bleed damage and our overall kinetic-based damage. And it's quite a nice boost of 35% and 20% extra bleed damage, so that is going to help us with the larger health bar bosses, but for the most part, we're taking them down quickly. We then have 2 points left. I would recommend taking 1 point in Guns and Needles. Again, a kill skill that we can actually proc off of Mortal Terror and give us our Repkits back so that we can get our action skill back, and this kind of becomes a feedback loop. It's pretty silly. Since we do have 2 points, you could go with the Strike Me Down. This is never a bad idea because it's just basically a get out of jail free card, and we have 1 more point which we can then pump into Guns and Needles again just so that we can continually keep getting our Repkit back. But as mentioned, if you want to put points in enchantment, this does boost our damage quite considerably, but I found that we had more than enough from this. And this build is a little bit different from some of the previous ones that I've done with Vex. I still think this is one of her better choices, and with the level cap increasing very soon this month, I've been looking ahead to what's going to be coming next for her, and I do think she's going to be quite strong. This is partly due to her class mod, the Teen Witch. This is the best class mod possibly ever in Borderlands, basically giving her life steal onto her shield and over shield, and an additional 10% life steal. This is insane, but it's also the skill rolls that we got on this. So I got a couple points of conjunction. This gives us 12% more damage when our shield is full. The big one for us is Grave Thirst. This whenever we get our kills, and it's 3 stacks of turns of 6. So it's 4.5% lifesteal per stack, and we can get up to 6 stacks of it. We basically never go down with this. And we also have points into Corporeal, which will give us over shield. So we basically are unkillable. There is really no other point in taking a different class mod. This is just the one that's by far the best. I also like to have the Watts for dinner on. This gives us 25% extra shock damage. This is just the best shield in the game by far. If you can get the amp with 150% extra gun damage and it eats up 35% of your shield, this works well because Teen Witch will keep our shields full, and it's kind of a funny loop where we get that increased gun damage, which means our lifesteal amount is increased, which just kind of fuels this even further. We also could throw in the Super Soldier, and actually the Super Soldier works very well. It actually lets you get a shot or 2 extra off with the Shalashaska, so that can be extremely useful. I also like the protein cell. It's a little bit more risky. It does eat up your shield, but it gives you 40% shock damage. And some people really just like the Timekeeper's New Shield, and you can go with that and just go all in on lifesteal if that's your choice. We got I think the most important thing, the enhancement here. This is nice to actually see a torgue enhancement be so useful. So guns with torgue lace and stickies will do 50% of the gun damage on impact. That is actually a massive boost to the bod. I don't want to talk about this gun anymore, so we're just going to ignore that. But hey, if you want to use Chaosin or any other torgue stickies, and even the Shalashaska has torgue stickies, but it's the second one, Head Ringer. This is the big one. This will give us a 100% damage radius, and why this works so well is that this one shoots the projectiles down, and then they explode. And when they have that larger radius, it'll actually hit the boss and deal a ton of damage. This is probably the best roll that you can get possibly. I had this in my bank, which is awesome. And this one came with gun damage, or pistol damage 38% increase, and gun critical hit damage 50%. So aim for the head. That is just by far the best choice. However, if you still just use the blind box with the increased ricochets by 1, that's still an amazing choice. So you don't have to grind out one of these. I know enhancements are a nightmare to farm, so if you're still just using one of these other ones, this build will still work pretty well. You just want to look for any of the increases to your splash radius, and you can get this on different enhancements. That's kind of the big one. You're going to notice the damage coming from. I still think that the critical hit knife does fit on this build. You can get by with like a slippy or a waterfall, even some of the heavier ones like the Atling gun if you prefer using it. I just think on Vex, she doesn't have a reliable critical hit chance way of getting it, so using these can just give you crits, and you throw 3 of them and start blasting away with a pistol, you'll actually start just clearing the rooms because those ricochets will just start spreading around with explosions and hitting multiple targets. I also like a Repkit with leech on it for this one. We already have so much leech, but if you're in a panic mode, you can just press this and start blasting away. There's also ones that are going to increase your splash damage, and Enrage is honestly probably the best choice, giving us a 30% damage boost to all damage. This does make us take more damage, but with Vex, who cares? We are tanky as heck. We don't really need to worry about that. So I am using the leech one, but you can really easily get by with that. Now for our firmware, high caliber, just the best choice because our guns bullets will now pierce. And this is really funny with Jacobs because they pierce, they ricochet, they explode, they do all sorts of things. So high caliber just ends up being really nice, and it works really well in others. The Dark Beast has that built in, but things like the Stray now going through enemies, really nice. This is mostly good on Jacob's weapon, so very powerful. And then we got 2 points into Deadeye here. Alternatively, you could do 3 Deadeye. This gives us a crazy boost to their critical hit damage, and 2 points into high caliber for the gun damage increase. But the start of the show, Shalashaska. This is a Metal Gear Solid reference. Big fan of the game. Awful lot, ocelot. Supposed to be like revolver ocelot. So basically with this weapon, don't manually reload. Take off your R key or get rid of your square button on your controller. Just don't press reload ever. You're just going to continually keep spamming. And the reason we want the shotgun one is because it's going to shoot at multiple projectiles, but it also drains the magazine quicker, so you can get back to the 5 ricochets quicker if you end up accidentally pressing manual reload. Trust me, it happens. This also has to have the torgue license impact. This isn't even the best damage roll. I'm pretty sure it goes even higher. But yeah, you want the torgue and the dataless. I spent a long time farming for one of these. I had other rolls that are kind of similar, but this just shreds. I also like a Stray just for lazy gaming. You can just put on a controller and just kick back and let it aim for you. Bot, it's the bot. Everybody knows the bot. Dark Beast, however, is a really fun weapon. I do think this is one of the better weapons in the game. I also want to give a shout to the mantra. There's a lot of really good mantras out there. If you can get Ripper and Jacobs, that's my favorite role. I have that on a different character right now because I'm playing with them. It works really well in this setup too, and you can use a specialization to boost your melee damage. But I think these are the top 4 weapons for a build like this. The Stray is just the lazy gaming option if you don't want to aim. You could also go with a wombo combo. Never a bad idea to go with those, although I do find that the Dark Beast and especially the Shalashaska are great for Ordnance crystals. TK's Wave, another weapon I just want to quickly give a shout to. And for our specializations, now this really depends. I was talking about the mantra. This is the bare arms you'd want for that. Otherwise, we're going to be going with the Now with Caffeine. This gives it our action skill back with the triple bypass Repkit. It's really nice. Really you this 50% extra gun damage, massive. And then we got a Honed Mind, which will give our action skill a critical hit chance and a boosted critical hit damage. That's good because Eldritch Blast can still do considerable damage. And I Am a Gun. This will now make it so that our action skill does get our gun damage increases, which is quite nice. So yeah, we're blasting away with Eldritch Blast. And that's one of the nice things is you can use Eldritch Blast pretty freely with this build. So you can just keep spamming those while you're shooting the gun. And yeah, combat, you do have to be a little bit aware of where you're standing because the increased projectile range will mean these will explode and destroy you if you're not paying attention. And I'm not hitting headshots there, so you see it's not really, wasn't really doing a lot of damage. I threw one crit knife and then it exploded. So yeah, if your shots just aren't landing properly, whoa, that was really fast. All right, let's try this on true mode. So this is the hardest difficulty in the entire game. Wow, if I was aiming a little bit better, that would have been quicker, but you saw it there, folks. This build is actually insanely strong. That's Ultimate Vault Hunter 6 true mode, and it's just deleting bosses left, right, and center. So yeah, this can actually tear through the Ordnance crystals and everything really fast. This build's pretty fun. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed, and we'll catch you all in the next video.